Welcome to the Seacreatures Podcast, a show all about the amazing animals that live beneath the waves. On each episode, we chat about a specific sea creature with a guest who has spent time and interacted with this ocean animal. Our guests range from marine biologists to divers to underwater photographers, citizen scientists, and anyone with an intense passion for marine life. My name's Matt Testoni, and I'm all of the above. And joining me for this episode of the Seacreatures Podcast is Martina Zimmitti, and she's an etologist, which is the study of between animals and humans. And she's also a dolphin trainer. And now she is the general manager of a liveaboard dive boat, or two liveaboard dive boats in the Maldives. And that's actually how we met. And today we're going to be chatting all about dolphins. Welcome to the show, Martina.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries. So start us off with, how did you get to study dolphins and then become a dolphin trainer? Like, how did that end up being?
I always had a passion for marine animals, sea creatures, animals in general. And animals from the sea always attracted my attention. Dolphins are amazing creatures. They attract everyone's attention. People think they're always smiling. This is makes them more interesting for us, for humans. I started studying dolphins when I was at uni, and every time it was for me something incredible to understand the social life of these animals, to see how they got back to the water, because their evolution is quite strange. They got to land and then they got back to the water. We studied a lot of evolution, like paleontology, neuroendocrinology. Many of these things brought me to understand some crazy characteristics about all animals, and particularly dolphins attracted my attention because they are mammals, and once upon a time they also had hair on their body. They kind of breastfeed, but it's not quite correct to say breast, because their mammals' glands are not close to the chest anymore, but they are closer to the genital area, actually inside the genital area. So their evolution makes them very interesting, and their social life makes them also quite intriguing. There are many species of dolphins, and all of them have a very peculiar social life. Many of them, they live in the open ocean with more than 1,000 meters of depth. And many of them, like the most common dolphin we can find on our planet, the Tursiops truncatus, which is the bottlenose dolphin, he lives quite close to shore, usually at maximum depths of 50 to 100 meters. I mean, they don't need to get to 100 meters, just the sea bottom where they live gets not deeper than 100 on average. Their space as a species, it's super wide, and I am actually specialized in Tursiops truncatus, bottlenose dolphin. You can find them almost everywhere except for the North and South Pole.
Yeah, cool. And so normally I'd be like, what is a dolphin? But they're marine mammals, which I think a lot of people are kind of across a bit. But what makes a bottlenose dolphin, like, what's special about them, and how do you tell them apart from other dolphins?
When you think about dolphins, the image you have in your mind is the bottlenose dolphin. There are species of dolphins that are completely different from the bottlenose. They are much smaller, much bigger. Their head is completely different. Like the pilot whales, they have this big round melon. Or the vaquita, which is a species of dolphins which is almost extinct. They are very, very small, and they have stripes, dark colors, or lighter colors. Bottlenose dolphin, it's like when you think about a shark and you think about the great white. It's the same, but there are many different kinds of sharks. Bottlenose dolphins are the image of dolphin in everyone's mind. The dolphin that is smiling, that is the bottlenose dolphin. Light gray, quite big, but not so big. They can get to 3.5 meters. They can be quite heavy as animals. They can reach 300 kilos and they are easy to spot because they don't live so far from the shore. So usually, even if people don't have, let's say, dolphinariums close by to get some education about the animals, if they live close to the shore or if they can reach any sea, they can usually find these kind of dolphins. This is what makes them, let's say, the most famous species of dolphin on the planet.
Yeah, cool. And so what's the day of in the life of a dolphin? What do they eat? What do they do? Do they spend more time socializing or hunting? How does it work to be a dolphin?
They are social animals. Sometimes scientists compare their life to the primates' life, like us and chimps, gorillas. They spend actually a lot of time socializing, and they use the socialization to hunt as well. But they are also very much sexually active. They are believed to be one of those species that doesn't only have sex to mate, but also for some kind of pleasure. They have been seen masturbating throughout their life, usually before or during their puberty. They explore their body in this way. Females and males, mostly males, because the hormones of the males is a little bit more powerful. But females have been seen socializing this way as well. So this is also very, very interesting. The life of a dolphin is the way they sleep. So I usually start by waking up. The way they sleep is incredible. Have you ever heard about the way they sleep?
All I know is it's something about half their brain is off at a time, but I really don't know. So please, tell us.
Yeah. They kind of sleep with one eye open. It's what they say about parents when you go out and you come back home and they are with one eye open. But they actually do it. They have to do it. Half of their brain, one hemisphere, is asleep while the other is awake. They have to do that to breathe. So if the whole brain is asleep, they cannot breathe because their breath, the way they breathe, is always voluntarily. It's not like us when we sleep, we kind of switch on the autopilot. They have to think about breathing. So they actually sleep with one eye and half of their brain on, and they can do this throughout the whole day. Not obviously when they are making other kind of active activities like hunting, like socializing, or when they are very well aware of some kind of dangers in their environment.
Okay, so they don't sleep at nighttime or spend half the night with one brain on, one half of their brain on and one half of their brain off. They do it randomly, or how does that work?
They usually use peaceful moments throughout the day because sometimes in the ocean the wind is strong and it becomes more difficult for them to go in this kind of status. So they try to find places which are peaceful. They are very territorial. Bottlenose dolphins especially, they don't travel too much. They are very territorial. They have a routine. They use the same places to hunt, the same places to sleep. And this is how it works. They can do it throughout the whole day when the conditions are okay. They are called ephemerals, which means they can fall asleep throughout the whole day at random times.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Is there a way that you know when a dolphin is half asleep or asleep?
Usually when they sleep, you can see this pattern. They sleep all together usually, and you can see them going up to the surface to breathe. After every 3-4 seconds, they just go down, and they have this kind of pattern which when you look at them, they look very calm and they are just very close to the surface. They break the surface, they breathe, and then they just go down for a few meters and then they repeat the same movements all over again. So this is when you realize that most probably most of the pod, a group of dolphin is called a pod, is sleeping or resting.
Yeah, and are there some dolphins that stay awake and are kind of on guard or on call, or do they all sleep together?
No, usually there is always someone that is more awake than others. They usually do this. Their socialization is very complex, and there are still many things we don't know at all. But we know that usually there is one or two or three that are always aware with the antennas up in order to detect any trouble coming their way, or maybe to detect some fish school. They can go and hunt, so there is always someone aware of the surroundings.
Yeah, and so if they see a fish school or a danger, how do they communicate to the rest of the pod? Is it like a squawk or a squeak, or how does that work?
The communication of dolphins is very interesting, and most of the research they do also in dolphinariums, it's about communication. They have two kind of whistles. All of us we know that dolphins whistle. They have high frequency whistles and low frequency whistles. The high frequency whistles are usually used for echolocation. Echolocation is a sense we cannot understand. It's like the sixth sense for dolphins. Actually, it's the fifth because they don't have the sense of taste. So it's just they replaced it with the echolocation, which is a very cool superpower. And they use high frequency whistle. They send this high frequency whistle into the environment and they just wait for the sound to come back. They record the sound through a special organ full of fat that they have inside their jaw. And this organ is able to kind of vibrate, and the vibration, they go back to the brain and they become an image for them, which is super cool. So the high frequency whistles are used for echolocation, and the low frequency whistles are used to communicate with each other. Low frequency whistles, they can go further. They can communicate up to 1 kilometer away from each other, maybe even more, because as you know, as a diver underwater, the sound travels much faster than on the surface because of the density of the water. So they can be very far away and they can listen to each other. And we also believe, and we have scientific data that support this theory, that they have names. They call each other with names. Yeah, this is crazy. It's called signature whistle, and they are able to call each other with names like Matt or Martina, and they just pick the dolphin, the individual they are interacting with. Yes.
Wow. How do they know, like, a different dolphin, what its name would be? Like, when you train dolphins, you can recognize them visually, or would they be recognizing each other by sound? How do you think it works?
Between them, I think it's mostly sound. Again, their communication is very complex, so we don't know very well how it works. It's also vision, obviously, but mostly sound. And they also have dialects. So if you take a bottlenose dolphin from the Black Sea and you take a bottlenose dolphin from the main, like from the Adriatic Sea, they might understand each other, but for sure there will be something they don't understand. It's like dialect. Okay, it's unbelievable. Scientists can understand this by checking the spectrum of the animals and training the animals to try to understand, like bringing them to something we want and then comparing the answers between individuals from different places. It is crazy what you can do with training, what you can understand. For us, the vision is the sense we use to recognize them. They have a dorsal fin, as you know, and we use it to photo ID them. And this is how we understand dolphins. Between them, we don't actually know how deep their communication can be.
Wow. And I just have to go back to echolocation for a bit because that is so cool. How far can they see with echolocation?
To be honest, I don't remember the range, but it's not so efficient as the low frequency whistle. High frequency whistles, the dolphin needs to be quite close to the obstacle in order to see it to listen and see it with the echolocation. So to be honest, I don't remember the exact range, but I think it's in a matter of like not more than 20 to 50 meters, even less, most probably.
Yeah, okay. And I'm sorry, I'm just obsessing on this kind of echolocation thing. But when they swim, Are they like continuously like kind of making these high frequency sounds and swimming and seeing the picture? Or is it a little bit more kind of do a few clicks, get a map of what's around and then swim a bit further? Like, are they, how does that work?
They usually do it when there is the need. They, as every animal, energy spent in every activity is very important. So if they are close to something they don't know, or if they need to hunt, or if they know there is a predator around, in that case, they will start making these high frequency whistles. You said a very important word, which is click. We call the high frequency whistles clicks, because you can actually listen to some very fast clicks. For us, it's almost impossible to detect, but when you are in the water with a dolphin and they are very close to you and they are able to echolocate, to explore who you are and how you are, how big you are, they start making these clicks, but they need to be very close. If you hear the whistles, they can be very far away from you. If you hear the clicks, they can be super close. So open your eyes because you might see them underwater.
That's actually a really good tip, because I feel like there's been so many like times where I've been busy like photographing a nudibranch and my friends watched, an animal like a dolphin kind of swim right behind. So it's good to remember the tiny clicks means like stop staring at the nudibranch and turn around.
Yeah, yes, totally.
Cool. And so what do dolphins eat? What are they hunting and what are they typically after? Or do they have a favorite food?
It depends where they are living, obviously. As I told you, we can find them almost in every sea around the planet. In cold seas, they usually eat fatty fish like herrings and other mackerels. Their diet also changes between winter and summer. So in warm water, they usually eat fish that are lighter, let's say. The dolphin that eats the most, like the period of the life a dolphin can eat the most, is when they are breastfeeding, when they are nursing their calves. A mother which is giving milk to the calf can eat up to 20 kilos every day.
Wow.
20 kilos of fish every day, yes. Even more if there is enough around.
Wow. And how long does a mother dolphin breast or like feed her child with milk?
It depends on, let's say, how good the calf is in interacting with the mother this way and how good the mother is. So this is very, very similar to humans. This is crazy, actually. They can breastfeed up to 2 to 3 years, sometimes even more if there are other calves in, for example, this is what we saw in the pools, in the dolphinariums. If there are other calves maybe being born after, and if the mother of that calf is not very good, and another nursing mother can take over and be able to feed for a longer time.
Wow. And they do that as kind of like a family, like, pod kind of behavior.
Yes. Females, they help each other very much. And throughout the whole life, usually they make bonds that are deeper than the bonds between males or males and females. And during motherhood, they are always very close. If there are 2 or 3 females, they help each other. And it is not uncommon to see females having calves at the same time, more or less. Usually, for example, in bottlenose dolphins, there is one alpha male, which is usually taking all the females. Only if he gets distracted, the beta male can have a chance to have a calf with one of the females.
Yeah. And are there multiple males in each pod as well and just one alpha? How does that work?
There are usually multiple males, but one is the strongest one. But there are multiple males because usually the pods are of bottlenose dolphins we are talking about. They are between 5 to 10 individuals. Females are usually more than males, but males are needed in order to keep the pod protected. Usually young males, they tend to leave the pod Females usually stay in the same pod. So they are born in one pod, and unless something happened to that family, they don't usually leave. They have a stable life. Males explore more around.
Yeah. And is there a pod leader?
Yes, usually it's the alpha male. The pod leader is usually the alpha male.
And so I just love this social interaction, by the way, but those males, the younger males that leave, are they looking for a new pod to join, or do they spend a bit of time by themselves?
They usually leave the pod. It's not common to see them living by themselves. They usually leave the pod with another young male, or other two or other three. It depends how big the pod is and what is the difference in age. They explore for a little while. They have their interaction with other pods, and then eventually they become beta males of other families, and then they get the chance to become alpha males of the pod they joined. Sometimes male between each other, they can be very mean and very violent, very similarly to our social interactions between males sometimes.
What does male to male violence in dolphin behavior look like? Is it biting? Is it slapping? How does that work?
It can be any type of violence, and I can tell you also what I saw with my eyes. So usually they bite each other, they chase each other, and they can also slap each other with this very powerful tail they have, which is their engine. But they can find very mean ways to show their dominance. This is kind of a sad anecdote, but I think it's worth talking about. We had a family of dolphins in one pool, and the alpha male got sick. And there were 2, 3 other males. And when the alpha male got sick, in order to get rid of him and getting the chance to become the alpha male, one of the males tried to drown the alpha male that was not very energetic anymore, not even energetic enough to go up and break the surface to breathe. And how he was trying to drown was trying to put his penis inside the blowhole of the alpha male. So they can find crazy ways to show dominance between.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a pretty effective way of preventing breathing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. When we saw this, it was like we understood that the alpha male was done, because these are ways of nature to let animals understand that there is something wrong. But when we saw the behavior, the way the animals were acting, and the other beta males, they were supporting this beta male that was trying to do this mean thing to the suffering animal. It's incredible.
And what happened to the alpha male? Did you just have to watch and let nature take its course?
In these cases, you usually try everything in your power because they are under control, and you always try your best to fix problems. But yes, eventually nature takes its course anyways. So there is not much you can do. At some point, eventually the animal will just perish. The other males didn't succeed. So the alpha male was quite strong, and he just showed them, okay, now you need to stop. But after a few days, the animal was not there anymore.
Yeah. And is that always kind of the way that happens, or does sometimes the alpha male leave if he knows that he's not going to be strong enough, or is it always a battle to kind of the end?
Yeah, usually in nature, when animals like this kind of usually mammals and social mammals, they usually leave the pod. They don't want to be a weight, let's say. And when animals don't feel very good, they cannot follow the rest. So they usually leave, or they are left behind somehow.
Yeah.
It's not the
Wow.
same between females or females and calves. Sometimes, there are these crazy behaviors of whales and dolphins, generally marine mammals, cetaceans actually, because other marine mammals like sea lions and seals, they don't actually have these kind of complex interactions. They have others, very interesting, but not like the parental care of cetaceans. The mothers, sometimes when they lose their calf, they just they cannot, they lose their peace. And sometimes it is possible to see mothers carrying the lifeless body of their calf for kilometers, not letting the body go down and not letting it go. So there is also, we don't know much about it, but there is also, we believe that there is grief in these kind of animals, and it's also a big part of their life. So they understand that, and they try to cope with it the best way.
Ahoy, Matt here. Just letting you know that we're running a Seacreatures expedition next September 2027, and we're going to the Maldives to do a trip called Manta Madness. If you've always wanted to come to the Maldives, if you've always wanted to see manta rays, this is the trip for you. So, send me an email at matt@mtunderwatermedia.com if you're keen, and hopefully I see you there. Now, back to the show. What other kind of emotions do you think dolphins have, like in addition to grief? What have you seen?
I have seen excitement, which you can relate to happiness, maybe, or sometimes you can also relate excitement to frustration. So it depends. It is very important, especially for trainers that are that are working with dolphins in under human control. It is very important to read their behavior, because these animals are very big, and if you need to get in the water with them, you don't want to give the chance to the animals to be aggressive with you, because if you don't read them properly, then it's your fault. We also want to read them to see if they are active or kind of depressed, in order to understand if they are medically okay. As scientists, we learn not to speak about emotions, because when you start speaking about emotions, the data, the experiments, you are shifting the conversation to another level. We want to use the scientific method, and emotions, I wouldn't use this word, but I do feel, I have the emotion, the feeling that they have very deep emotions, like dogs and cats, which we live with every day, and we know when they are happy, how to make them happy, how to make them sad with some kind of punishments or removing a toy they like. I do believe that there is something like this with dolphins as well, but let's say I don't feel comfortable talking about emotions, because then you leave the scientific side and you get into something deeper.
Yeah, it's a really complex thing.
The problem, Matt, is that our brain works completely with emotions. What we are doing now, the time we are investing in this conversation, is because we love, and love is an emotion we feel. We love talking about sea creatures. We love seeing them in the wild. So we cannot remove this from the equation of our life. That's why scientists, in order to be believed, they try very hard to remove this at least from the data and the paperwork. But to be honest, I tell you a secret, I do think they have a lot of emotions, like happiness, and they get depressed, they get apathic, and they get depressed. They can feel that when some of them dies, and if some of them had a particular bond with this animal that just is not there anymore, they do get less active. So this can be related to depression in humans, for example. So yeah, I do think they have emotion, but we cannot talk about it.
Yeah. And I mean, so now we've said the word depression, I have to ask. So as a dolphin trainer, I know there's like a lot of talk, especially with orcas, killer whales, and their kind of depression, as I'll say, when they're in like tanks and then they're in captivity. How does it work with bottlenose dolphins, and how do you feel about it?
Well, I do feel, and I think any dolphin trainer, any trainer would agree, that they are not supposed to be in confined waters. I do feel that this kind of places are very, very important for research, and this gives purpose to the motive of keeping them There is a high chance that the environment you provide to this kind of animals, which are not like all other animals, they are marine mammals, so they are complex like mammals, but they live in the water. So the factors you need to take care about are so many, so different between each other. You will never be able to give them the environment they are supposed to have. First of all, you cannot give them a multi-species environment. It's very rare to have pools with other species. The more species you put in this kind of environment, the more chances you get to have animals getting sick. So it is very difficult environment to control and not easy to keep them, let's say, always mentally and physically stimulated. But dolphin trainers within this, they are the best. They master this. They are always doing enrichment and any kind of enrichment, sound enrichment, food enrichment, toys, playing with them, being there for a little while, going away. The training is itself a very, very good physical and mental stimulation for them. And I do think that other sections of zoological parks or zoos or enclosed animals in under human control, any kind of animal, they should use training. They should use positive reinforcement training because this keeps the mind of the animal stimulated all the time. And it's a nice way to get through the day and to understand if the animal is suffering or not.
Yeah, and even for like veterinary issues and stuff, if you can train the animal, it's much less stressful from what I've seen as well.
Exactly. Yes, completely. Here we train, here in Greece, the biggest part of the training the trainers do is medical behaviors, like blood sample collection, blowhole sample collection to see which kind of bacteria are there, if the blood is okay, if they are anemic, if they are lacking some vitamins, and they can also put the animals on the scales in a voluntary way. So they can try to understand what's the weight of the animal, if they are eating enough, if they need more food. And they always do this, of course, to prevent, but also in case the animal gets sick and doesn't want to get touched or fed, helps very much to avoid the animals to suffer too much.
Yeah. And I mean, we have to touch on this, but what is it like working with dolphins and being a dolphin trainer? Is it as amazing as everyone thinks, or are there highs and lows?
Of course, there are. Every job, there are up and downs in the everyday life, and there are many difficult situations you do not expect to live with these animals. For sure, the attachment is a key point to do this job, the attachment to the animals. In fact, usually in dolphinariums with more than 4 dolphins, there is a trainer that works specifically with certain individuals, because you need to know your animals the best in order to read them, and you also get attached. And every day is a new challenge because you want to be interesting for them, but you are doing every day the same things, but you still need to keep their attention. So it's an incredible experience. And the best thing is when you start training something that you know is going to make their life better, and slowly, achievement by achievement, you can get to the goal. For example, we train here voluntary gastroscopies or phlebotomies. So if you need to remove a lot of blood because there is too much iron, for example, in the blood, you train the dolphins to stay there for 1 hour, 1.5 hours with you, with the needle in the vein. So this is kind of crazy because sometimes you cannot even do this to people, and it's incredible. The gastroscopy, the hydration, semen collection, artificial insemination. These are all things that are trained and with positive reinforcement. Let's say dolphins are now the elite animals in zoological parks. If all the other animals had all these rules that dolphins have in order to be kept under human control, all the animals in a zoo, lions, eagles, and birds in general, reptiles, they would have a better life. So it is an amazing experience, yes.
Yeah, cool. And I guess that kind of shows the connection that humans have to dolphins, that we've put all those rules in place that we don't have to other species that are further removed from us, like birds and even lions and tigers.
Yes, yes. There are two ways to look at this. Activism was very important for this. When, we always touch these kind of hot points. I'm actually happy there are activists because they pushed very much in order to have these kind of rules in place for these animals. So I am pretty happy that there are those rules. And yes, of course, the connection we feel with these animals is very important. But mostly, I think it's because they are so difficult to be kept and they are so interesting for people. They just get a lot of attention. To be honest, I don't know why, because I have been studying many other species like social insects and other kind of species in the animal world, and they are all very, very interesting, but dolphins are special.
Yeah. And I think I just have to touch on, there's always a debate about animals in captivity versus animals not in captivity. But I think one thing that is often not highlighted or thought about enough is that by having dolphins in the captive environment, you not only are studying them, which is great for their conservation, but you're also making a connection with people who come and visit them, which is how conservation starts. So whether it's right or wrong, I think people always have to realize there are two sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about having 8 billion people going in the sea to see the dolphins. That would be not sustainable, and that would be a big mess. This mess would touch not only all the dolphins in the world, but other animals and all ecosystems. These kind of facilities, sometimes if you think about them, your thoughts get ugly, but there are many reasons why they exist. Education, research, rescue, trying to put them back in the water when after they have been rescued. So there are many reasons to have these facilities, but obviously they have to be decent. And nowadays, for example, in Europe, there are a lot of laws, and these animals in Europe and America, United States, they are very much protected, and that's amazing because you can find one more reason to keep these facilities working and ongoing.
Yeah. And so another kind of crazy question for you is, you worked in a dolphinarium, but you've also worked on a lot of liveaboard boats doing diving. If people want to see dolphins, what do you think is the best way? Should they visit a dolphinarium, or should they jump on a boat and do scuba diving? What's your thought?
Well, it depends. No, not everyone has the opportunity to just buy a flight ticket and go anywhere in the world where there are dolphins. So it depends. Maybe when you are young, visiting a zoo, it's a good thing. So you can see animals, you can see the variety of species we get on this amazing planet. And nowadays, it's so important to see this variety and how incredible this planet is, because we really need to protect it, and we really need to change something in our daily life in order to keep the ecosystem healthy. But of course, if you have the chance to visit any other place of the world other than your hometown, that's also amazing. The only thing I feel it is very important to do before doing this kind of trips is to understand if the way you are going to see the animals is sustainable. Maybe do a little research beforehand and try to understand if the way the interaction is going to happen, like whale watching or encounter with whale sharks or these kind of huge trips to the poles, to Antarctica, if it is sustainable and if there are any ways you yourself can make it more sustainable.
And what do you mean by sustainability? Because I presume it's not just about like carbon emissions. It's also about how many tourists are in the water or how they interact. How would you check that out if you wanted to know if the dive trip or the snorkel trip you've booked is sustainable? What would you look for?
Well, first of all, I would understand if the company is in any way involved in any project, like photo ID of the dolphins or any kind of university project. This is also a good way to understand. But sometimes they just advertise this as an attraction, So you just need to go a little bit deeper, and you need to understand, maybe watching videos of this kind of interaction, if the interaction is not bothering the animals. Sometimes with this kind of animals you don't even want to enter the water. It has to be kind of enough or satisfying to watch them from far away, maybe with your camera, because sometimes getting too close and jumping in the water, it's just too much for this kind of animals. There are other kind of animals like big whales that are very curious and they just come to you, but also the way you approach the pod, the way you approach the animals, the individuals, is very important. There are some that you can understand even if you check a very short video, they don't do the right thing. Maybe they have a higher rate of encounters. That's possible, for sure, most probably. But the way, it's always very important. And sometimes we as divers, the risk of not seeing anything, it's always there. And this is the beauty, because otherwise you would have gone to the zoo. If you want 100% chance to see a dolphin, just go to a dolphin.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas I guess, diving is a little bit more, and snorkeling is, it's the wild, it's the ocean. But I think it can make it more special when eventually you do see that whale shark or that manta ray or the dolphin.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
And so just before we kind of wrap up, I usually like to finish with some cool facts. Do you have any cool facts about dolphins that we haven't chatted about already?
Yeah, I will bring the conversation back to the training. By training, you can understand many, many things. And some trainers that worked for a long time with dolphins, they were able to train the dolphin to tell to the trainer which kind of reinforcement they wanted. If they wanted a pet, like scratches, if they wanted fish, if they wanted squid, if they wanted a secondary reinforcement like ice or just a water basket or a water fountain. So by training the animals, you can understand how deep their cognition goes and how much self-aware they are. Another cool thing I have experienced on myself, I told you before about the phlebotomy. We were training the phlebotomy to one of the dolphins here in the park, and this dolphin was like 20 something years old, a male, and the mother was there in the same pool. So the mother was the only female in this pool. And when I was training for the first days, this behavior, the male was a little bit afraid. He didn't like me to stay. He didn't like to stay for such a long time in the same position. And he was kind of afraid because the blood sample collection is not always connected with positive things. But the animals are there because they trust you and they trust at some point it's going to end and they will get their reinforcement and you will be happy. Like there is excitement after the behaviors. But it was the first time we were training this and we were increasing the time for the animal to stay in the same position slowly. But at some point I could feel the animal was not very comfortable. And at some point I just had this attack from the mother. The mother left the dolphin trainer she was with, and I was with my legs in the water, and she just came and attacked me super suddenly and quite violently, actually, to be honest. And it was kind of crazy because it's like the son called, Mommy, they are doing something to me. And she came to separate me from her son. Yes.
Wow. Wow,
incredible.
that's yeah, that's
Yes, and then we put them together because we understood that the animal was not feeling comfortable, the son, and the mother was also not feeling comfortable with the training session. So we put them together. We left the training, the step of for that behavior there for a little while, for 1 or 2 days. And then every time we were training this behavior, the mother would be close so she could see that nothing was happening and she could accept us training the behavior. And we eventually succeeded. After a few weeks, we could manage to do this procedure in a voluntary way, which is a great success.
yeah, and I guess it just shows you how close the bond is, not only between the mother and the son, but also the trainer and the dolphin, that you're able to take blood and do that. And yeah.
Yes, you need to be very sensitive to the change of behavior. You need to feel, you need to try to feel what they are feeling, if they are comfortable, if they are excited, if they are having problems with other animals in the pool. Or problems with you. Sometimes, one time there was one dolphin that when one trainer was working, she was just not coming. She was not coming to that trainer because most probably she didn't like to work with that specific trainer. We changed the trainer and off we go. She was okay. She was participating. She was cool. She was eating properly. But yes, they are. It's incredible. They are super complex and. They are very interesting animals.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
And one last question about dolphin training. How long does it take to build a bond with the dolphin? How long before you can start to train like blood sample techniques? I presume it's not weeks, it's longer, or?
It depends. It always depends on the animal and the steps you want to take. The steps have to be like baby steps, especially in the beginning, especially if you haven't been working with that animal. If you know the animal and the animal knows you, you can train a medical behavior of any kind of behavior, depending how complex the behavior is, in a matter of weeks, even days, if you have a lot of training sessions to dedicate to that. Behaviors like blood sample collection, they can be a little bit tricky, or gastroscopies, or this kind of little bit invasive behaviors. They can be tricky and you can lose the behavior anytime, because if you do a mistake, if you don't reinforce the behavior properly, or if you make the animal feel uncomfortable because you are not totally there, because you are experiencing maybe stress in your life and you just pass it on that kind of behavior, you can lose the behavior anytime and the animal would refuse to do that specific behavior, which is incredible. So the reinforcement is very, very important in this kind of interaction with the dolphins.
Yeah. Wow, it's such an interesting job.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, if people want to learn more about dolphins or see dolphins or anything like that, what should they do and where should they go?
Books, of course. And now there is this amazing tool called Chat GPT. It wouldn't, every tool is very powerful. And it also depends the way you explore the tool. There are some books that are specifically scientific, and there are others that tells you a story, but there is some science there. What I wouldn't suggest is this kind of documentaries that are on one side or the other side of the story. Documentaries like Blackfish that kind of scream that the pools are completely wrong and they shouldn't be there and everything is wrong. They are not. That is not education. They point the light only on one side, and they also don't say the truth. There are many things that are not correct in those kind of documentaries. So one side only or the other side only, it's not the right way to explore any topic, and dolphins as well. Places that offer you the chance to have an interaction in the wild, maybe far away from the animals, in places where there are laws that protect the animals. Maybe those are the best places where I would go to learn more, because you can have the experience of seeing them, maybe different species in the wild. So you have the wind, you have the sea, and you can see them with your eyes. And then you have someone like a marine biologist telling you what they are doing in that moment and how they are interacting. where they live. And this, I think, is the best way. But you need to understand if you're doing it in the right place, in the right way, in the right time of the year, because there are moments where there are more tourists, and that is not the best moment to explore any wild place, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I guess, a big part of it is it's not often on the podcast when I ask those questions that the result is like you need to do a lot of research, or you need to really look into who the provider is and when you're going and make that ethical choice. It's with something like hermit crabs or something, it's very easy to go see them, but with dolphins or any big marine animal, it takes a lot more thought, I guess.
That's very, very important. And you have been on our boats, and you know the way we try to set our interactions for our dive guides and for our guests. We are not talking only about dolphins. Every time we go in the wild, we are talking about an entire ecosystem. For example, lately, we have been taking the decision of stopping the whale shark searching, and this will benefit dolphins as well, because we are not polluting anymore. We are not sailing very close to these amazing, rich areas where you can find whale sharks and pods of dolphins, stenella, spinner dolphins, bottlenose dolphins, even whales pass by that area. So the more people go there, and the more the ecosystem is going to be disrupted. So we just took the decision. There are no laws in this moment that control this kind of interaction. There are some, but there are no rangers. There is no one checking. So we just took the decision ourselves, and we try our best to be sustainable and to protect the environment instead of just having interactions and just polluting and bothering the animals with our presence. So for me, the research before you go is a must. It's actually a must.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to go on a trip with yourself, how do they do that?
They just need to come to Maldives. And before that, they need to contact Top Class Cruising. We have 2 amazing boats in the Maldives. We do 3 dives per day. Sometimes we see dolphins ourselves, but in Maldives, they are quite shy because they have been hunted by humans for a long while. Maybe in the future, they will get a little bit more curious, and we could see them more often. The ecosystem of the Maldives is unbelievable. So if you are a sea creature lover, the Maldives for snorkelers and divers especially are an amazing place. And our boats, we always try our best to have the best interactions in the most sustainable way. Yes, Top Class Cruising, Sachika, Princess Mani, and a tank, a snorkel. That's it. You don't need more.
Awesome. And I'll post links to Top Class Cruising on the Seacreatures podcast and our Instagram. But thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's a pleasure to be with you generally, because we don't have the chance to talk with each other. So it is an honor to be your guest, and it's always nice to have a conversation with you. So thank you so much.
Seacreatures Podcast is hosted, edited, and produced by myself, Matt Testoni. Production assistance by George McGrath, and music by the talented and amazing Dan Musil. If you've liked listening to Martina and Dolphins, think about coming on one of our Seacreatures expeditions. The next one is called Manta Madness, and it is coming up in September 2027. So stay tuned for more details. If you want more information and are keen, check out some of our upcoming Instagram posts on Matt_Testoni_photography and Seacreatures_podcast, or send me an email at matt@mtunderwatermedia.com. Also, I'd like to say a huge thanks to all our Patreon members. It's with your support that we can keep the show running and keep making exciting content. Coming up next time on the Seacreatures podcast, we're going to be talking all about the world of the grey whale. This has been the Seacreatures podcast. Over and out.